Welcome everyone to our workshop called Including Student Volunteers in Research. My name is Ryan Peltzel, and I'm the Volunteer Network Coordinator here at WeSpark. And I actually was a student volunteer before coming on as a full-time employee with WeSpark. So this is kind of something that I've been working towards for the last few years. So I'm excited to kind of share these with you and for you guys to hear our great panelists. So we'll get started here as people trickle in, and this will also be available on our YouTube channel afterwards for your reference. So for your best experience, mute your mic and turn off your camera. We will have time for a Q&A session at the end, and if you're comfortable coming on mic and asking a question, you're more than welcome to at that point. Use the chat to leave any comments or questions throughout the presentation and while our panelists are talking. And then if panelists want to address those questions in the chat, or we can save them till the Q&A session at the end. Also trying a new kind of interactive piece using the reaction functions on Teams. So if you see the little smiley face with the hand right above it like this, there's some reactions that pop up. So I'll be asking a few questions throughout. Yeah, good example, Adriana. There's a clap one. So yeah, you can use those throughout the presentation as well. And if you're joining us from a phone, feel free to stop us during the Q&A if you have anything to add. So I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi. This is the territory in which the WeSpark Health Institute sits, and where I'm fortunate to be delivering this workshop from. And as I continue to educate myself and actively participate in reconciliation efforts, I hope to better understand the history of Indigenous peoples to become a better ally moving forward. So for those of you who are new to WeSpark, WeSpark's an innovative partnership between Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare, St. Clair College, the University of Windsor, and Windsor Regional Hospital that brings together health research strengths, expertise, and infrastructure from across Windsor, Essex. We're establishing research pipelines to address pressing health issues, advancing discovery and innovation, technology, training, and promoting excellence among our health professionals and engaging our community. So here are a few ways how WeSpark can help you. We have a research registry if you have a project you'd like community participation in. Of course, our think tanks and grants program, and something I'll be highlighting today is our volunteer request form. So the goal of today's presentation is to really explore the range of capacities in which students can participate in research projects. Hopefully that you gain a little knowledge on how WeSpark can support student researcher partnerships, and to gain insight and hear useful tips to involving students in projects from our panelists, and hopefully prepare you to include students in your research efforts. So just to kind of get a lay of the land here, can you give a thumbs up if you're a student, a heart if you're a researcher, or a clap if you are in a role looking to support either researchers and or students? Okay, so we see a good mix come in, lots of thumbs up, lots of claps. Awesome, great mix of people in here, that's awesome to see. Thank you for sharing. All right, so kind of diving into our volunteer network, I wanted to start with kind of a vision mission to set the stage for this presentation. And our vision really is to have an interdisciplinary student network that collaboratively supports health research and enhances education in Windsor, Essex. So our mission is to create unique volunteer opportunities for our post-secondary students in health research. And kind of our vision of who we want this network to be comprised of, it's really all the students in our region. So that encompasses St. Clair students, the University of Windsor, both at the undergraduate and the graduate level, as well as Schulich medical students here at the Windsor campus. And each of these groups of students really has a unique perspective and skill set. And currently we do have lots of students from UWindsor. We have some representation from St. Clair, as well as some master's students and med students helping us work on how to better embed them in our processes. So each group of students is really seeking different opportunities. So it could be either they're looking to enhance their personal and transferable skills, professional development, maybe they're looking for relevant work experience, building a CV or portfolio. And I think as we work through how all these pieces connect, it'll be easier for us to kind of pick the different strengths that these three groups bring to WeSpark. We have a new position at WeSpark. Devinder Modgil is our new medical student research associate, and she's going to help coordinate the medical student research projects and really help them to be embedded in, help them to be embedded in our network a little better, as well as the master student piece. Sorry, just having some technical difficulties here. My screen is gone. Okay. Sorry, can you see my PowerPoint there? I don't know if that went away. Yeah,
I can still see it.
Okay, sorry about that. So this is just kind of a non-exhaustive list of different opportunities that we have through our volunteer network. And there's kind of a whole bunch of different buckets within that our projects fall within. So here's just kind of a list to take a look at and get you thinking about where you could potentially pull a student on, or if you're a student on the line, maybe something that you'd be interested in working in. So whether that be data entry, collection, or analytics, digital communications, lit reviews, outreach events, etc. And just before we dive into this, I wanted to kind of give an overview of our volunteer metrics from the first quarter of our year, from May 1st to July 31st. So we had over 600 volunteer hours logged, and 6 projects were requested from external kind of groups outside of WeSpark internal team. We had 20 different projects 17 different projects initiated and 20 active volunteers. And you can see at the bottom, we've had 15 new skills learned among our volunteers and 5 new connections made. So this has really been a win-win, and this is kind of highlighting that not only are our researchers benefiting by kind of increasing the capacity, but you can see that the students are really gaining some valuable skills and connections in order to kind of help them pursue their future career. So you might be asking yourself, why WeSpark volunteers? So you can just easily get a student that you're already connected to and get them working on your projects. And our reasoning is kind of sixfold why we encourage you to use kind of our services. And these are really available to any WeSpark member. So all of our volunteers kind of have some preliminary training. So they attend a WeSpark orientation where they learn about our role and kind of the research landscape in general. They kind of see what researchers need, and we provide them with various tools to help them on their way. I'll get a little bit more into the training in the next few slides, but we do have additional training certifications that we can help with. Many of our students have also taken a course that teaches like science communication, research ethics, and we also have a cancer undergraduate research education here taught by Dr. Lisa Porter. And it gives kind of a good idea of what kind of research is all about, and it helps get our students kind of on their way to being successful in their projects. So another great thing is our students are connected to a network of other students. So like I said earlier, undergrad students, masters, medical, so they all can kind of help each other, provide input or feedback. As well, it's easy to get additional collaborators on projects. For example, if a project gets larger and you need to recruit additional students, there's a lot of peer interactions where it's easy to recruit an additional participant. Our volunteers have an easy takeoff because we have so many templates already created. We have tons of examples of kind of the quality of work that we put out, different infographics. We have tons of like professional account subscriptions. So a lot of things kind of at the fingertips of our volunteers. So in a lot of cases, not starting from scratch. So our volunteers are coordinated. So we do kind of the recruiting, the hiring, and the training. And we essentially lease our volunteers out to different members as project requests come in. And students sign up for projects based on their own interest. So I think that's great because students are more likely to be keen in a project if they've hand selected it based on their own kind of agenda and interests. And me and the WeSpark staff kind of provide some guidance and support as well there. They have a quick start. So based on previously requested projects from some of our members, we really can connect volunteers to you within a week or two of you submitting the request. So it's kind of a quick turnaround time. And kind of bringing it back to that research knowledge, they already kind of have the right lens to look through some of these problems with, including a background in like equity, diversity and inclusion, kind of community and research relations in general, professionalism, research ethics, etc. So a little bit more about our training program, and this is kind of in development, but we do have a variety of city training modules available through the University of Windsor Research Ethics Board. And we can create different streams, like add or modify different courses in order to create a stream that is beneficial for you looking to get a student on a research project. So I have some examples listed here. We also have Red Cap training. So many of our requests from like Hotel Du, for example, have been in the form of a Red Cap project, and we can get students trained and working on those as well. Kind of looking ahead, we're looking to develop, our Knowledge Translation Committee is looking to develop kind of a student training hub on our website that houses all of these different resources that kind of gives students the tools they need to jump into these projects with both feet. And one of them being our professional development series that WeSpark staff has recently launched. And that's where each of us takes a moment, takes like one session to teach our volunteers a little bit about like knowledge translation or EDI or kind of social media in general, how to work with researchers, our community members, and of course our Red Cap kind of 101. So in this kind of training hub, we can house those materials in a variety of like external training modules, whether that be a research ethics, how to conduct a systematic lit review, an unconscious bias training, etc., and then a variety of tools and resources. So please let us know if you have any other ideas for the central hub. If you're a student and there's been some training that you've been through that's been beneficial to you in your role, or if you're a researcher and you have some suggestions for what you provide your students with, you can throw ideas in the chat, and I'll be looking for those. And then just some examples of tools. These are two kind of tools that we've developed, and I'll be sharing these with the group when they're approved by the Knowledge Translation Committee, but essentially just kind of checklists to help students and researchers kind of collaborate more efficiently. So here's another one of our reaction questions. So what's your experience with our volunteer network? So thumbs up if you're kind of hearing about this for the first time, a heart if you've heard some things before, or if you've already been involved as either a student or a researcher. All right, awesome. Lots of hearts coming in and claps. So it's great to see that we've already used the network and that people are learning more about it. It's awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. So kind of getting to our volunteer request form. So this is kind of a platform for researchers to submit requests to get volunteers working on their projects. And this is, again, a huge range of projects, not just having them as a research team member, could be disseminating findings, knowledge translation products, infographics, social media, etc. So this is the information we require if you submit a project for our volunteer network. So you can really submit as many as you want if you're a WeSpark member. And if you aren't a WeSpark member yet, it only takes about 1 minute to sign up, and then this service is right at your disposal. So essentially, we ask you the project type, a brief description, if there's any training required, and that will really help us develop that training resource hub that I mentioned earlier. If you do give us recommendations there, we can easily embed those. Estimated duration, how long it might take, and the urgency. So if you're looking for a quick turnaround time, for us to know that information, we can kind of connect you to a student as a more of a high priority. And it's nice because I said earlier, the students are selecting what roles they want to participate in. So likely the student you're connected with has an interest in what project that you've highlighted. So yeah, they may be more keen. And then just to highlight a few of our projects that have taken place, one of them was a citizen science and a strategies for patient-oriented research literature review. So we had 2 student volunteers complete this. And just to kind of give you what the supervising time kind of looks like, WeSpark invested around 4 hours in this project just to manage the students, give them a lay of the land of what we were looking for. And out of that, we really got 2 comprehensive lit reviews and a presentation created, which is probably like 25 or 30 hours worth of work. And it was really easy for us as a WeSpark staff to go in and make any adjustments because the foundation was very well developed already. So it's kind of that trade-off. You give a few hours and you really get a whole lot. And I think again, these students got an opportunity to put a presentation together and kind of organize their thoughts with a lit review, which might not be an opportunity that they get frequently. And then just to highlight some of our requested projects, I've broken them down by our WeSpark partnering institutions. So Hotel Du, we've had students note take at different events and use those notes to brainstorm ideas for knowledge translation kind of outputs following that event. Different infographics to highlight programs, and of course, RedCap Consulting. From Windsor Regional Hospital, we've created a video promoting a new cancer program and a treatment option. So that was kind of for like a patient audience. WeSpark, we had a St. Clair College intern create and design our impact report. And the University of Windsor, we put together different social media campaigns, created fundraising packages, aided in participant recruitment for different studies. So there really is a wide range of project requests that we do get. And it's nice because having kind of a large volunteer team, we're able to attend to those requests. In St. Clair College, we haven't had any requests from staff there. So if you are from St. Clair College, consider using our request form. Okay, so one more reaction here before we get to our panel discussion. So what are you feeling now? Full of ideas? You're appreciating your current partner relationships with students, or you're maybe excited to work with students or researchers? Awesome, a lot of claps, some hearts coming in, awesome, great to see. Okay, so getting to the cream of the crop here, the panel discussion. So I'm going to introduce the panelists one by one and invite them to turn their videos on right after I introduce them or while I'm introducing them. And they'll each have 5 to 7 minutes with the floor. And I'll turn my camera on at the 1 minute mark to let them know. But we do have a good amount of time, so there isn't a huge rush there. You can enter your questions in the chat, and if the presenters, I can present those during the Q&A session. And I'll introduce our first panelist now, which is Vanessa Montemurri. She's a third-year medical student at the Schulich School of Medicine and Dentistry here at the Windsor campus. She was a volunteer with WeSpark since 2016 and participated in many different projects. And now as a medical student, she's going to touch on kind of the importance of undergrad volunteering for a profession. And unfortunately, Vanessa couldn't actually be here today, so I'm going to play a recording of her. But if there are any questions directed towards her, I can collect those and send them to her via email and make sure that you guys get those responses back. So if you just give me 1 second here, I'm just going to share the video.
If your sharing feature isn't working, Ryan, you can send me the link and I can share it.
Okay, thanks. It's just loading up here, so I'm hoping it's going to work. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Vanessa.
I think you have to leave your mic unmuted, Ryan.
My experience as a volunteer.
Sorry about that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Vanessa Montemurri, and I'm a third-year medical student at the Schulich School of Medicine, Windsor campus, and I also did my undergrad in biology here in Windsor. At that time, I was a volunteer with WeSpark, so I'm here to talk a little bit today about my experience as a volunteer and kind of what I did and what I got from it. So, as a volunteer, I was mainly involved in outreach events, like the think tank, the Cancer Research Conference, and the Cheers to Hope event. mainly in planning and executing these events. Also, I was involved in designing infographics to communicate research going on here in Windsor and local grants that have been awarded, which are all great experiences for me. I feel like I got to do a little bit of everything. Volunteering with WeSpark initially appealed to me, and I think that it's a really good thing for students to get involved with because it's a great way to get exposure to research without committing to a research project, especially for someone who doesn't know exactly what they want to do or exactly what kind of role they would like to play in a research project. I think it was really great for that. So you kind of get to see what projects are going on in health research, and you get to learn a little bit about who does what and how they're involved in the projects. You can kind of see what interests you and where you may be able to fit. Another great thing about WeSpark is you actually get the chance to network with professionals that are putting on these research projects. So I don't really think you get to do that anywhere else. So that was something else that I really liked about being a volunteer. I was also really interested in the fact that they were trying to network the researchers at the hospital and the researchers at the university, as well as connect them with community members. I think that involves a lot of communication, and as someone interested in medicine, I was really interested in learning more about communicating and educating patients, and I think WeSpark was a really great opportunity to develop those skills. So I really like that, and that's what I was interested in becoming a volunteer for. Reflecting on my opportunities, I had a really great experience as well getting involved with Dr. Ham as a preceptor, who I met through WeSpark as a volunteer at the think tanks. I heard about her project. I was able to ask about getting involved, and then I slowly got to get my feet, see where I would be interested in, see what area of the project I'd be interested in, and see what I was able to take on with the skill set that I had. And obviously I was given guidance as well, so that was great. And eventually I was able to work up the project on breast cancer up to the level now. I'm still continuing it in medical school. I've been able to present it at multiple conferences, and this is an opportunity I wouldn't have had without WeSpark forming that connection and allowing me to kind of have a small exposure to the project initially to kind of pique my interest. That's another amazing thing that WeSpark offers. I think for researchers that are interested in taking on student volunteers, a few ideas about how you can enhance their experience. I think to involve them in the research and offer guidance. And I know people are busy, so it's difficult to offer guidance to new students who may not have any experience. But if that's the case, I think offering support or resources that they can go to when they get stuck, perhaps an older student involved in a similar project, that would be very helpful and very useful, so the students don't feel as overwhelmed or kind of like they don't know where to go with the project. I think that it's always nice to know that you have someone to reach out to. I also think setting up meetings and keeping deadlines is a great way to let the student know that you're still interested and involved with the project. That's something that definitely keeps the project going. And also, I think another thing is keeping students involved at every level. So even if a student is just involved in data collection or maybe social media portrayal of the project, inviting them to all the meetings is a great way to just kind of keep them involved and open their eyes to the other areas of research and the other parts of the project, so they can kind of see what they'd be interested in doing in the future. Something that just comes to mind is maybe you're doing a retrospective chart review, and you have the student come to the staff meetings as well, so they can kind of see what goes into the full project. And maybe they're not involved in the manuscript writing, but you can have them edit or you can have them read it over, just so they can see all aspects of the project. And on the topic of involving students, I think they're really eager, and something that they're really good at is communicating and using different media outlets to communicate. So this is something that you can have them do for you. You can have them kind of create infographics about your project, or maybe little videos to inform the public about what you're doing. I think it's a great way for them to get involved and learn about the project as well. As students, getting involved with with ReSpark is one of the best things you can do. It's really great for learning communication skills, networking with professionals, learning how to speak with professionals. I think something that I definitely learned is interview skills, I think, is another thing, just because you're talking to so many people throughout the day in terms of the public at outreach events, you talk to professionals at think tanks, and also working at the cancer research conferences and things like that. You get a lot of chances to communicate that can help you with your interview skills in the future. So there's a lot of transferable skills as well. You can learn how to use Canva, you can learn how to use Excel. All of those things will be valuable in the future as well. I think thinking back to an overall kind of example that highlights everything you get to do with ReSpark, I just think about the think tank. So you get to hear the different ideas, you get to see how presentations are done, you get to learn about ongoing research opportunities, you get to network, and all while just volunteering with a single organization. So I think that kind of sums up everything that you get to do. And again, it was such a great experience for me. It really impacted me in the sense that it really opened my eyes to what we have going on here in Windsor in terms of research. And I think that ultimately influenced my decision to stay in Windsor for medical school, just because I was able to see what we have going on and see all the effort that's being put in health research here, as well as get to see all the support from the community. I think that was really great, and I overall had an amazing experience. I think as a student, it's great to get involved. As a researcher, it's great to get students involved. There's a lot of different things that they can do for you to support you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about my experience getting involved with research, reaching out to people, or if you're a researcher, how to involve students in your project. I'm happy to answer questions about that as well. I will leave my email with Brian, and feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
All right. I would thank Vanessa, but she's not here. But thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think another great reason to volunteer, kind of from my perspective, is to kind of get your feet wet and see different job opportunities outside of like the traditional kind of ideas of what a program has to offer to you. I'm just thinking from the Faculty of Science perspective, like a doctor is not the only job that there is out there. So I think that was something also great for us. Okay, I'll now introduce our second panelist, who is Dr. Jennifer Voth. She's a research associate in the Research and Evaluation Services Department at Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare, and she sits on the Research Development Committee at WeSpark and is the recipient of multiple WeSpark Igniting Discovery grants. So she's here to speak to us about her experience with WeSpark volunteers. Thanks so much for being here, Jen.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for inviting me to take part in this panel discussion today with these wonderful other folks around the table. For me, involving students in my research is a really important discussion. I think, you know, as a researcher at Hotel Dieu Grace, you know, it's a community-based hospital. We are not an academic research center, at least not yet. You know, there's only a few. We are involved in research. We are knowledge users of research, and we certainly value the impact that it has on clinical practice and on improving the lives of our patients and our clients and our families. But the reality is that there's only a few of us staff members at Hotel Dieu that are paid formally to do research. Which I think is not a unique situation to us in the community, but it means that we need to heavily rely on student volunteers to kind of keep our research program going and keep our research projects moving forward. So student volunteers are absolutely essential to implementing research at Hotel Dieu Grace. And the student volunteer network just provides me as a community partner and my colleagues a way to connect with students. You know, we're a small research office, kind of newish. I'm not sure that it's widely known among students and faculty at the college or at the university that students can get a research experience here at Hotel Dieu. And, likewise for my part, if I have a project that I know could use a student volunteer helping me, before we Spark, I didn't know who to reach out to find a student that might have been interested in that opportunity. It's just one of the disadvantages of not being around or interacting with students on a day-to-day basis. But that volunteer request form just allows that avenue for me and for my colleagues and for those of us working in research in the community to connect with a volunteer. And as well, like Ryan was saying, the student can then choose the opportunity that they're interested in and something that's meaningful to them, which, as we've been talking about, I think is, we're both coming to the table invested in that project. And I think that's, from my experience working with students, one of those key ingredients to success. So I do have We Spark volunteers working on, I think, 3 of my projects so far. So again, I think that speaks to the need for student volunteers at the hospital. One of those projects is our Caring for the Caregiver study. It's a partnership with Dr. Edward Cruz, who's a faculty of nursing professor. He's our fearless principal investigator. Myself, Patrick Kolowitz, who's our wonderful director of mental health and addictions, Clementa Stan, who's a caregiver and a member of our Patient and Family Advisory Council at the hospital. So together we received an Igniting Discovery grant. We did a community needs assessment where we were trying to better understand the experiences and the support needs of caregivers locally who care for and support a loved one who has a mental illness or addiction. And then we use those findings to inform planning for a 2-day Caring for the Caregiver conference. So it was sort of a mini intervention. We provided education, we promoted wellness, and supported connections among caregivers. We had over 200 caregivers register for the event, mostly locally, but a few others, caregivers from across Canada who just heard about the event organically. And we had We Spark students basically fully integrated into the planning and the implementation of that event. So we had students helping us to promote the conference through different target audiences. We had them develop a broader social media campaign strategy, which worked really well. We had a student introduce a speaker and facilitate a question and answer period, which was awesome. We've had students facilitating and note-taking in those different breakout room discussions. And now we have We Spark volunteers helping us in that post-conference activities. So that includes phase 2 of the research. So they're helping with data collection and interview transcription and analyzing survey data. We also have a student working very closely with our team to develop a knowledge translation resource hub for caregivers, developing resources based on what we learned from caregiver needs through the research and through the conference. We have another We Spark student who is assisting us on our COVID recovery program. So it's an internal sort of quality improvement evaluation that is focused on our outpatient rehab program for individuals in the community who are experiencing long COVID. And this student will be supporting the use of REDCap for collecting, process, and patient outcome level data, and just sort of building our capacity, our clinical staff's capacity to collect data electronically and then use those data to drive decision making. We have another We Spark student who's supporting our designated care partner program, which is a really cool initiative to formally integrate family members and caregivers into the care teams up on our inpatient units and have staff train them to assist in providing aspects of their loved one's care. their patients, their loved ones' care plan. And so we're investigating whether that program helps to kind of smooth that transition home for both patients and our families, and reduce length of stay and reduce readmission. Right now, that student is supporting the creation of infographics and other knowledge translation resources to kind of communicate about the program, enhance knowledge around what a designated care partner is and how they're essential to the care here at Hotel du Grace. So lots of different projects, I think lots of different skill development opportunities for students here at Hotel du. For my part, I've been amazed by the work that the students are producing for these projects. So many times they're putting my own work to shame, which is sad but true. But there's a ton of other benefits for me too in involving students into my research projects. I get the opportunity to provide mentorship to students, which I wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity in my role. So I get to teach students about how the research process kind of works, for better or for worse, and in an applied hospital setting. It's also a great learning opportunity for me. It's been a while since I've been in the classroom, and there's all new ways that students are learning to do things through their courses. And by working with students, those lessons get to sort of trickle down to me. So I've had students introducing me to new health and system level theories. I've had students teaching me new methodologies, certainly new ways of collecting data and visualizing data. So just a fresh perspective on research, and that's helping me to continuously improve as a researcher, and I'm grateful for those opportunities. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jen. A lot of great examples of how our students are jumping into projects. And something that you said that really highlighted, I think, what we're looking for here is that it's an avenue for researchers throughout Windsor, Essex to connect with students. Because we do want this kind of to be available to all of our WeSpark members. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll now introduce our third panelist, who is, a couple slides over, Dr. John Freer, who is a professor and a coordinator for the Educational Assistance Program at St. Clair College. He is also a recipient of a WeSpark Igniting Discovery Grant. And he'll be speaking to student involvement from the perspective of St. Clair College. So if you're all set here, John.
Good afternoon, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me to the panel and setting this up for all of us. So I want to tell you all a little bit about my experience as a college professor and working with students. I guess to begin, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll share with you a little bit about my research projects and how students have been involved over the course of the last 3 years of my research program. So as Ryan mentioned, my name is John Freer. I am the coordinator of the Educational Support Program and professor at St. Clair College. The Educational Support Program is a program that prepares students who are interested in working with children and youth with special education needs in our K-12 school system. And my research program directly aligns with that interest. I am interested primarily in inclusive education and how we can enhance experiences for students with and without exceptionalities. And I look primarily at how our attitudes influence experiences for students with disabilities, how teachers' attitudes towards inclusion, but most recently, students' attitudes towards disability. And what I found is that children do develop preconceived notions about disability as they start to develop their in and out groups. And unfortunately, students with exceptionalities are too often excluded from social groups. And so I'm very interested in addressing those preconceived notions with students and helping them to develop more progressive understandings of disability and the diversity of disability experience. And so for my doctoral work, which I completed at the University of Windsor's Faculty of Education, I developed an intervention to teach children about disability experiences. And at the time, I was teaching in the Educational Support Program at St. Clair College, and I came across, I I started having natural discussions with students about my work because it really connected to the topic that I was teaching about. And I guess that's the first point I want to make, is that at St. Clair College, we don't have a lot of research going on, but we certainly have pockets of research happening, and it's growing exponentially. I think recently we were just ranked in the top 50 colleges in Canada for research engagement. And so we're certainly growing in that area. And I want to point out that research is very diverse across our college. There are many students who are using their technical skills in engineering programs to do technical projects, applied research projects with partners in the community to develop actual devices and things of that nature. The nursing students are engaged in health research. My research, it falls more under the social science end of things, sort of meeting at the crossroads of disability studies, psychology, and education. And so because of the way that the college is set up and its structure, and this being a new way of thinking about research in the college system, I have found that my research relationships with students have really begun to grow from authentic grassroots conversations. And so when I was developing this intervention I was mentioning a moment ago, it was a conversation I had with a student about my intervention in an office hour, telling them about, that I'm developing this intervention to teach students about disability, and I want to have an element of parasports so that students can sort of embody a disability experience through participating in parasports, and then reflect on those experiences and sort of flip ability and disability on its head, right? Because if the person who's the most able is the parasport athlete demonstrating their skills in the gym with their tremendous athletic ability, it sort of helps to flip that notion of what is ability and disability. And it so happened that this particular student was a sledge hockey player with the Windsor Ice Bullets. And they said, well, why don't you come to our practice tonight? I said, well, sure, I'll come to your practice. I'll check it out. I didn't really know anything about sledge hockey. And they put me in a sled, and I got on the ice and I tried it out. And I thought, wow, this is the sport that I want to select, because, you know, we could have selected wheelchair basketball or a variety of different sports. Parasports, but this was the sport I ended up selecting, and that particular student joined me alongside another student who happened to be a parasport athlete, and they helped me to deliver the intervention in the grade 4 classes that I worked with for my doctoral work. And they were able to bring their lived experiences and their expertise to those classroom discussions and lessons. So that was really helpful. Fast forward a couple of years, my doctoral is done, and WeSpark puts out a call for a Igniting Discovery grant, and I decided to throw in an application. I wanted to expand upon my doctoral work, and I wanted to replicate the study, but also expand upon it by looking at a variety of different factors associated with attitudes towards disability. And so I was successful, thankfully, and I'm very thankful for WeSpark for giving me that opportunity. And I was teaching an intersession class called The Incredible Human Mind. It was my first time teaching an elective course. Now I'm outside of the educational support program. And a student comes to my office hours and they say, hey, do you know anyone at the college where I can get involved in research? I really enjoyed your lecture on research methods. And I thought, I think you might be talking to one of the only people that's doing research in social sciences. There are obviously a couple of others, but I mean, it's a little bit siloed, unfortunately, but we're getting better at this. And so he and I, the student, have been working together ever since, and he's been supporting my project in a variety of different ways. And he actually, over the summer, mentioned that he would like to engage in taking the lead on a project. And I told him, in the absence of a thesis stream at the college, I would be happy to do that with him. And so we are currently preparing a systematic literature review on disability representation in school, and it's our intention down the road we might together look at the relationship between representation and attitude and how that impacts that development. So I think that at the college it's really about these grassroots conversations and opening up to students, and it really lends itself naturally to that because of the applied research nature of research at St. Clair College. We can easily modify our lessons and put in information from our research. We're not only very aware of the research that's out there by being involved in the research field, but we're also contributing to it, and it enhances the expertise we can bring to the classroom. And so And so by embedding that information into your classes, it just develops into conversations with students. And I was surprised. I have to say, I had my own preconceived notion about college research at the college and engaging students. I thought, well, these students don't have the methodological training yet, and so that might pose a barrier. But actually, that is a challenge. It does take a lot of additional time to do these things, but it's also the case that the training is a blank slate. And so there's really no bad habits that have formed yet. And so we can begin to mold and shape research methods from the ground up, which is really useful. Now, we do have some work to do with regards to allowing us professors the time to do these things, because currently, as it stands, our job, unlike the university professors, is 100% teaching. And so we don't have a 40% research into our schedule. And so that's something I hope that we Spark, together with college and university and other partners, can work on. And I've had conversations with different members. So I think that's a high level overview for now. And I welcome any questions that you all might have for me after we hear from our final speaker. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thanks so much, John. I really liked your comment about the grassroots conversation kind of tip, because I think we think it has to be this huge step we take to involve students, but really just having something as simple as a conversation is a great kind of first step to involving students well. So thank you so much for sharing.
Pleasure.
As I load up my presentation again here, I can introduce our last speaker. And we do have a lot of activity in the chat, so I'll make sure that we get to those questions. I see some of them have been answered already, so that's great. So our last speaker is Dr. Dora Cavallo-Medved, who is a learning specialist and professor in biomedical sciences and the acting associate dean of science for the faculty and student engagement at the University of Windsor. Dr. Cavallo wears several hats within WeSpark. Firstly, as the translational research director for the Windsor Cancer Research Group, as well she sits on our knowledge translation and community engagement committees, both which have significant student involvement. So she'll be speaking about her experience with students. Thanks, Dr. Cavallo.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks again for giving me the opportunity to come here today to speak about a subject that I absolutely love, and that is working with students. So as Ryan mentioned, my work with WCRG, our Windsor Cancer Research Group, my work with the Faculty of Science, my work with WeSpark, all of it involves my partnerships with students. And this has been a tremendous, not only benefit to the students, obviously, but a huge benefit to myself, both in my teaching and my research, and also in my own community service. As Ryan mentioned, I work with a lot of students at all of these, in all of these parts. One of them was actually Ryan himself. So Ryan worked with me, as well as our other colleagues in the Windsor Cancer Research Group a few years ago, as one of our student coordinators, and eventually that position moved into WeSpark, and where he now is the leader and coordinator of all of our student volunteers. So it's been great to see Ryan grow and transition into this leadership role. Vanessa was another one of our students that worked with us in the Windsor Cancer Research Group, and again, wonderful to see her move on to medical school and continuing to work with our clinical researchers in cancer, and my co-director, Dr. Carolyn Ham. But in addition to Ryan and Vanessa, I still have lots of connections and still working with lots of students through WeSpark. One of them is Eddie Grimmett, who is a second-year biomedical science student. He's actually been working with us since his first year, and that just speaks to the fact that students can be very young and really have not much experience, but really bring a lot to the table when they do research with us. And he's working with us both on cancer research, education. He's working on a paper with me right now, and also working on educating the community about various cancer research projects that are happening here locally. So he also works with myself and Adriana and our social media campaign. In addition to that, I've also worked with two other student volunteers through the network, Kieran and Sarah, who have put together videos that we are now going to be using at the University of Windsor to promote our smoke-free campus campaign. So again, not a cancer-related area that I am most comfortable in, but an area that is very important to student health across our campus. And so they've been able to come in and work with some of our university staff in creating those videos. And finally, the other major project that I'm working on right now with some of our students in the network is a COVID vaccine confidence project. It is a student-led project and funded through NSERC, where we have built a student team that is multidisciplinary. So that means students from the Faculty of Science, students from psychology, students from HK, as well as students from St. Clair College, all working together to build this campaign of awareness and building confidence, specifically for those younger populations, ages 12 to 29, to promote vaccine uptake and helping them within the community, answering questions that they may have, addressing some of the hesitancies that they may have with vaccines, with COVID-19 vaccines, and again, building that confidence. So just a little plug to them, because their campaign is actually launching next week through social media, and they are going to be putting forth some webinars and so on, specifically, again, targeting those younger audiences. So those are just some examples of some of the work that I'm doing with students through the network itself. One of the things that I think for the student perspective is that being able to take what they've learned in a classroom, whether it is at University of Windsor or St. Clair College or the medical school, being able to take that information, that technical content that they're learning, and be able to take it outside of the classroom and continue that learning process through these experiential learning opportunities, whether again it's in any of those areas or right directly within the community, is a huge benefit for them in being able to build transferable skills. So skills on leadership and communication, organization, team management, time management, and just collaboration skills and working with others. Students rarely ever work alone on any of these projects. They are working in partnership with the researchers, but also with other students. And so they're starting to also build their peer network skills. And for them, that I think that is a huge benefit for when they move on to whatever it is they're going to do next in their career paths. And, in the Faculty of Science, we always talk about what are you going to put at the top of your resume? And this really speaks to that, because nobody wants to put their grades at the top. People want to know, what did you do when you were a student at University of Windsor or at St. Clair College or at Schulich Medical School? What are the skills that you've learned throughout your time? It's great you have great marks. I mean, we have a transcript for that can show that part. But what are the other things that our students are learning? And so that's the unique thing about the network, is allowing those students the opportunity to build those skills so that those become the top things that they're going to put on the top of their resumes. In addition to that, it also gives students a sense of purpose, to be able to take what they're learning in their classrooms and then bring it out, whether it's to the community, whether it's a scientific community of research, whether it is amongst their own peers, giving them that sense that, yes, I have had the ability to learn and then to pass on that information. And that's essentially what we're doing as researchers. We are constantly learning, and then we pass that information on to our students. And for the students, they can be part of that process, and then also be part of transforming that information, translating that information, I should say, to the greater public. So I think that sense of purpose in what they're doing is also a huge benefit for them. As a researcher, one of the greatest benefits for me is just new perspectives. Fresh eyes, open minds, not the cobwebs that are in my head that have been there for a long time, but to have these students come in and see things, see research, or see projects in a new light that I may not have thought of before. Progressive thinking, modern thinking, bringing in technologies that, as Jen mentioned as well, these things that it would take me so many years to learn that stuff, but they bring that very important skill set that we can work together in partnership. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let us give them the steering wheel so they can steer that path moving forward. I think another thing as well in working, especially within networks of students and groups of students, is the idea that we can bring very diverse perspectives to a project. And so when I work with students, I often try to find students that come from various backgrounds, involving domestic students and international students, and also involving students from science and involving students from the arts and humanities and social sciences, maybe nursing students, HK students, students at St. Clair College, medical students, and so on. So bringing all this diversity is so important in helping to see projects and design projects in a light that is also equitable and inclusive of all different types of perspectives. And finally, just a couple tidbits on working with students. They're human too. They have to sleep, they have to eat, they have to also have some fun in their lives. And so, their expectations have to be realistic. And there's going to be students that can give more and students that can only give just a little. And that's okay as well too. I know Karen just said, what, sleep, eat? Yeah, we don't do that normally, but we have to allow our students to do that. I always check in with students, make sure that they're doing okay, that they are able to keep up with what it is that we have asked them to do with us. These weekly or bi-weekly check-ins, just always asking, are you doing okay? Do you need help? Do you need extra support? Those kinds of things, because they've got a lot going on. They've got normally full course loads. So we don't want to overwhelm them in that process. We want to be walking alongside with them in this journey. So for me, those are sort of the very important points on and experiences I've had with students. I absolutely have enjoyed every single minute of it, and I look forward to many more projects in the near future. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dora. That was awesome. I was so engaged when you were talking, staring at the screen. But I'll invite all our panelists to turn on their videos now. Dora, if you want to leave yours on. And I do have some questions for each of you. I'm aware of time, though, so there are some extra questions in the chat, so I'll make sure that those answers can get out to whoever posed them. I do have a question for John, if he is here. Just getting his video. There he is. So what recommendations do you have to recruit St. Clair students into research projects?
It's a great question. I think part of it is, as I mentioned, those authentic conversations and embedding research into your lectures. I think also it is building awareness. I think we can, as a group, do a better job to make students aware of the different projects that are happening. I see some very eager and enthusiastic students from St. Clair College in the chat that are mentioning they want to be part of things. So I think it's events like this are fantastic. Perhaps we could even send out some emails out from the research and development office to our student population, letting them know about the kinds of research that are happening and how their skill set could really add value. Because I think that's what students want. I mean, I don't want to speak for students, but I think everyone wants to add value. And there certainly are a lot of opportunities with that regard, because our students have, in many cases, very specific set of skills that they're learning in the practical sense in our community college programs.
Yeah, those are great tips. I took some notes during there. Maybe we can touch base afterwards. And then one for Jen here. What was a worry that you had when you were before you worked with the students? Maybe a hurdle that you foresaw, and kind of how did that turn out?
Yeah, I don't know if I can pinpoint really a worry of working with students, but I think Dora really touched on it. For me, something that I'm always aware of is expectations. So my expectations of the student and what they can do, the student's expectations of me or the project, it's really important to me to give a student a valuable experience. I want to learn, what do they want to get out of this experience? And I don't want it to be overwhelming. I want them to learn something new, maybe a new skill, but like I said, I don't want it to be too challenging. So for example, I don't want to give a student a task that's beyond their training at that point or their skill level, and that just takes time to get to know students and what they're looking for. I wouldn't say to a first year student at the college or at the university, go analyze this really complex data set and expect to have, without support, and expect to get something back that that's usable for both of us. So I think that's just a learning experience for me. I don't have that previous relationship with students, so just putting in the time to learn about, where they're at, what they want, what their skill level is, and try and match what I can do to support them and provide that continuous follow-up and help them become, independent researchers. So like I said, I just think that's a learning experience for me, and I'm hoping to improve over time. Yeah, and I think like kind of from a student perspective, it can be intimidating to tell a researcher that you don't know how to do that. So yeah, I think it's awesome that you, from your perspective, you're considering that from the student's end. And then Dora, I know you touched on this a bit, but what is unique about WeSpark volunteer opportunities versus maybe other undergrad opportunities at Windsor?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things I think with WeSpark is that really gives students the opportunity to volunteer outside of the University of Windsor. So at least for the students that we work with, and specifically I deal primarily with students in the Faculty of Science. So many of our students do undergraduate research. They do research with our science faculty within the Faculty of Science at the University of Windsor. They don't really go outside of that. A lot of them outside of that initial bubble, if you will. So I think with WeSpark, it really allows them to connect with people outside of academia as well. So for example, I'm thinking about a couple of science students that worked with Rebecca in the Windsor Essex Sewing Force over the last couple of years. And actually, I should also mention that these students also got service learning credits. So we have courses in the Faculty of Science. I don't know if other faculties have similar courses or at St. Clair College where students can work with community partners and they can actually get course credit for applying the stuff that they've learned in the classroom out into the community. So, that's one of the things, and WeSpark is a very active in that as well, which is great. So giving that additional different kind of experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we have so many questions coming in the chat here, but I am aware of the time. So thank you so much to our panelists for coming on. I do have a few other slides to get through, but I'll make sure that the questions that are in the chat, that we do get answers to those students who've asked. But thank you so much to our panelists. This was awesome. I learned so much about kind of coordinating from a volunteer coordinator perspective. So I really do appreciate you guys coming on today. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. And feel free, if we didn't get to your questions in the chat, you can always email us as well. So you can send to Ryan, then we'd be happy to answer outside of this presentation.
Thanks for having us, Ryan.
Thank you. So just a few slides to finish up, trying to finish kind of on time here. So kind of what's a final thought after hearing from our panelists? So give you something to think about, or maybe are you ready to use the volunteer network? So thumbs up or a clap. Got some claps. Awesome. So good to see. So yeah, join us at WeSpark. You can become a member. Adriana will put the link in the chat. And if you need any support with coordinating volunteers, or you have any questions, please feel free to reach me at my email here on the slide. And we're looking forward to continuing the conversation on Tuesday, November 3rd from 12 to 12:30 at Adriana's KT Water Cooler, which is kind of a themed conversation about how to share your findings in a webinar, or really anything KT related. And Adriana's worked with lots of students as well, so she can kind of provide some insight from a KT perspective. And then finally, we do welcome feedback. So this is an evolving process, and we do rely on you to improve these webinars and kind of our process as a whole. So Adriana will put a link to a feedback survey in the chat if you have any pointers for us or any ideas moving forward. But thank you so much for taking the time and coming to the webinar today. I hope you were able to take something from it, and I hope to hear from you in our volunteer request form coming up. Thank you so much.